with this Iran war escalating, we have other countries implicated again. And while this has been a sort of slow-rolling failure of Trump's ceasefire and the timeline that he'd promised, it is something that, especially with everything else going on, is easy to lose track of. We actually are marking today as the 10th straight day of U.S. airstrikes, a sign that the ceasefire obviously is not holding. And, in very serious news, 3 more American troops killed over the weekend. So the region, the people following this, the experts, are bracing for what looks like an escalating return to a war footing between these two countries. The Army released photos of 2 of these slain Americans, Private Isabella Gonzalez and First Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan. The service members were killed in what appears to be a missile strike against a U.S. base in Jordan. Again, the spillover in the region is a reminder that while the United States does have a mightier military than Iran, something that was demonstrated in the initial strikes, we are not impervious to being hit.
What's happening, people? Welcome to Jack Mockler again. Trump's grip on congressional Republicans is crumbling in real time, with members openly breaking ranks and voting against him, unthinkable just a year ago. His frantic Truth Social attacks aren't working anymore, and the iron fist is dissolving into something unprecedented in modern American politics. Think about the sheer magnitude of what's happening here. Yes, Trump is still technically the president. Yes, he still wields executive power, but he is clearly, undeniably, no longer the unquestioned leader of the Republican Party. He is no longer the guy who snaps his fingers and watches everyone fall in line. He is no longer the figure who can demand a certain vote and expect total compliance. That era is over, and it's ending visibly on major votes that are documented, public, and impossible to ignore or explain away.
In the region and elsewhere, Trump had claimed within a few weeks ago that Iran would have missiles, that this was going to get worked out, that the danger was going down. That is obviously not what has happened. And it's a contrast to Secretary Rubio's comments after this strike.
So we lost people in Jordan after there was a strike. A missile got through. We shot down almost all the missiles. One leaked through, hit the wrong place, and tragically, and it's heartbreaking.
In the press conference, you said you don't mind Iran having ballistic missiles. Can you elaborate on that? I want to make sure we understand your position.
No, I'm saying that if other countries have them, it's a little bit unfair for them not to have some.
This administration does not speak with one voice. It does not have one agenda for this war. It never explained what the mission or missions were. And if there is a sort of tragic irony that speaks to the anger that Trump faces across the country and from his base as well, it is that Donald Trump himself, whatever you think of his inability to make good on his promises, he clearly understood that the wider view and
This is a genuinely huge story, and it shows you exactly where the Republican Party is actually headed and how Trump's power is finite, limited, and eroding in ways that are becoming increasingly impossible to deny or spin away. For months now, throughout early and mid-2026, House and Senate Republicans have been joining with Democrats on key votes. They have been overriding Trump's vetoes or just flat out defying his direct orders and his explicit wishes on major issues affecting the country. They have been breaking with him on limiting his Iran war powers because they simply do not want him starting a nuclear war unilaterally without any congressional oversight or approval. They have been breaking with him on approving military aid to Ukraine because they actually want to support our democratic allies against authoritarian aggression.
opposition to our Mideast escapades over time made him a candidate who campaigned against the very thing he's doing now, against the open-ended commitments in this region. And that is to say nothing of Donald Trump's many broken promises about the timeline for this war. He said it would end in weeks. He said it'd be very soon. He said we'd be out of there by now. And he also said this partial ceasefire that they started would be a quick road to the end of the war. It is not. As mentioned, we're in the 10th day of strikes. Trump has been pressed on all this, including over the weekend.
Turn around, Mr. President. He said at the start of the war it would be 4 or 5 weeks.
Well, you keep hitting me. This is a far bigger job that we're doing. If you look at it, after a week and a half, not 4 weeks, a week and a half, 2 weeks, we stopped them from probably, but I don't want to have the word probably.
gas prices are back over $4 a gallon today. And there are pockets of opposition on the sort of mainstream conservative media, to say nothing,
recognizing that America's global leadership depends on standing firm against tyranny. They have been breaking with him on bringing back Obamacare tax credits because their constituents actually need affordable health care, and they answer to those constituents far more than they answer to Trump. Now, before we dive deeper into this unfolding drama, let's be honest about something. You really can't trust mainstream media anymore to tell you the full story. That's exactly why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and absolutely no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines and understand what's really happening in American politics, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every single day. Just click the link in the description to join.
Of the podcast and digital space, which we've reported for you even before the ceasefire crumbled, the Iran war, obviously, the Iran war has been as big a fissure on the right online as the Epstein story. And we've seen folks like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, and of course the big one, when you look at Joe Rogan, a kind of combined agreement that this is Trump's sort of biggest, most ongoing error. And a lot of Republicans privately say it is dooming their chances in the midterms, where they already felt they had an uphill battle. I say all that to say that's sort of out in the conversation. Then you have mainstream voices sort of on the traditional network, like Fox's Maria Bartiromo, who are just sort of reminding their audience what many people are already angry about, that there is a inability to reconcile the claims that Iran was effectively defeated under the opening Trump operation and their ability to hit and kill U.S. service members now.
Trump says that there will be outsized action in retaliation, but I don't understand how it's possible that Iran...
And if you just want to support what we're doing and be part of a community that actually cares about the truth, join us. Be part of something real. All right, let's get back to this incredible story. Let's bring in MSNBC congressional reporter Michael Schnell, MSNBC contributor and chief White House correspondent at the New York Times, Peter Baker, and Aaron David Miller, senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. It's good to see all of you guys this morning. Aaron, I'll start with you. The U.S. and Iran have been trading these strikes now again for days. We're seeing this continued escalation.
Has the capabilities to fight this way and continue to try to lash out at Gulf countries and U.S. military bases, because the U.S. has obliterated Iran's military, and the president continues to reiterate that.
That's just sort of one of the premises of the questions that you're facing over there. The wider question 10 days in is the question we started with. Why are we in this war? How do we get out safely? I'm joined now by Tom Nichols, who writes for The Atlantic. He's a professor emeritus of national security affairs at the prestigious U.S. Naval War College. His new piece is Trump Owes Americans a Better Explanation About Iran. Tom, let's start with where we're at. Americans have been told a lot of different things by their government. Are we now at war with Iran? What level war is this, just in the context of since it started?
We've been at war with Iran now for 20 weeks. We launched a major military operation with the express goal of regime change, which is what the president was talking about on the first night of the war. When that didn't happen, of course, the president and his team invented all kinds of other reasons, including this really...
What signal does the president's post from this morning send to you, other than confusion and the fact the president's in a box? Look, the deal was designed to achieve two purposes. Much like the Gaza deal in October 2025, end the war, number one, and open the straits. It was a short-term fix, kicking all the other issues down the road. The problem, Antonio, is that these two objectives, ending the war and opening the straits, are fundamentally irreconcilable. The Iranians have weaponized geography. They do not intend to give up their leverage and control, and every single time Trump lashes out viciously on social media, calling Republicans bad names and saying they are bad Republicans and unpatriotic and threatening them, the votes keep coming regardless. The defections keep happening repeatedly. The resistance keeps mounting and escalating. The numbers are growing significantly with each vote that happens. We are talking about dozens and dozens of Republicans breaking ranks on major visible votes that people can see and track. That is not normal Trump behavior at all. That is actually unprecedented in his time as party leader and in his time controlling Republicans. He has never had to face this kind of systematic, organized rebellion from his own party before. Not in his first term as president from 2017 to 2021. Not in his presidential campaign. Not in the early days of his second term when he had all the momentum and political power. But now it is happening, and it is accelerating noticeably. And it is happening because Republicans are finally starting to realize that following Trump off the cliff and supporting his most extreme and unpopular positions is not good for their own electoral prospects, and not good for their specific districts or communities, and not good for the country overall, and not good for their political futures and careers. The main trigger for all of this Republican rebellion and defiance is Iran and war powers, and Trump's increasingly unhinged threats to destroy entire civilizations with nuclear weapons. Trump is actively trying to massively expand his ability to wage war against Iran without getting formal congressional approval or authorization first. He wants to act completely unilaterally. He wants to have complete dictatorial power over military decisions and war-making. He wants to be able to start wars on his own without Congress, but Congress is saying no firmly. Republicans are joining Democrats and saying no. They are voting to limit his war powers explicitly and directly. They are voting to require him to come to Congress before he escalates the Iran situation further and risks sparking nuclear war. And Trump is visibly losing his mind about it because he wants total control over military decisions and war-making, and he is not used to being told no by Congress or anyone else. But Congress is pushing back hard and firmly, and that pushback is just the beginning of the story. Then you add Ukraine military and financial aid on top of it. Trump has been resistant to sending military and financial aid to Ukraine for months and months. He has opposed aid packages repeatedly and vocally. He has called it a waste of money and a bad investment for America. He has suggested repeatedly and strongly that the United States should not be involved in supporting Ukraine against Russian invasion. But House and Senate Republicans are breaking with him dramatically. They are voting to send billions and billions in aid to Ukraine. They are voting to support our allies against authoritarian Russian aggression. They are saying Trump is wrong on this one, and Trump is absolutely furious about that too. Then you add Obamacare tax credits and healthcare subsidies to the whole mix. Trump wants to get rid of the tax subsidies that help ordinary Americans afford health insurance under the Affordable Care Act. He wants to scrap them entirely and replace them with something else according to his plan. But Republicans are voting to keep those tax credits in place. They are voting to help their constituents keep affordable health insurance. They are voting directly against Trump's explicit demands, and Trump is calling them all kinds of names on social media repeatedly and calling them disloyal to the party. So you have got war powers defiance on one major front. You have got Ukraine aid defiance on another front. You have got healthcare defiance on a third front. You have got multiple major fronts where Republicans are breaking with Trump and voting against his explicit wishes and his direct orders. That is not normal. That is not how Trump usually operates and rules. He usually gets what he wants from his party. He usually has party loyalty on complete lock through fear and intimidation. But that control and that loyalty is eroding noticeably right now in real time, and everyone can see it happening. All right, so let us actually break down the specifics of what is happening and understand the votes and the numbers, because this is important and it shows you exactly where the cracks in Trump's control are forming. Early in the year, there was a day where multiple House Republicans broke with Trump on multiple votes simultaneously. And these were not small numbers. These were significant numbers. Dozens of House Republicans broke with Trump to override his veto of a Colorado water project bill. That is a large group. That is not some tiny fringe group. That is a substantial number of Republicans saying, we do not care what Trump wants. We are voting for the Colorado water project, and we are overriding his veto. And Trump and his allies have pressured these Republicans not to do it. They had tried to intimidate them. They had tried to coerce them, but they voted anyway. Then on the same day, basically 24 House Republicans broke with Trump on a Florida tribal bill, another veto override. That many Republicans saying Trump is wrong and we are overriding him. And then on Obamacare tax credits, many more Republicans joined Democrats to revive the lapsed tax credits that help people afford health insurance. That many Republicans rejecting Trump's demand to get rid of the subsidies and replace them with direct payments. So on this one day, you had dozens of Republicans breaking with Trump on multiple votes. That is not a coincidence. That is a coordinated rebellion. That is Republicans deciding collectively that they cannot follow Trump on these issues because their constituents need action and because Trump is wrong on the policy. Now jump forward to the middle of the year. Things have only gotten worse for Trump. Reports are showing that Trump is facing new Republican resistance in Congress as midterm pressures are building and expanding. The coalitions of Republicans willing to distance themselves from Trump are growing and expanding. And these are not just random members. These are people Trump has tried to oust in the past. These are people Trump has been warning with. And now they are uniting against him. In one significant vote, a substantial number of House Republicans joined Democrats to pass the Ukraine Support Act, authorizing more than $1 billion in Ukraine aid and billions more in defense financing loans. That many Republicans crossing Trump to help Ukraine. And this happened just one day after several other Republicans backed a measure to curb Trump's Iran war powers. That many Republicans in one day voting to limit Trump's ability to wage war unilaterally. That is the kind of systematic resistance we are seeing. And Trump's response was immediate and furious. He went on Truth Social at an absurdly early hour in the morning, and he called the Republicans grandstanders. He said the war powers vote was unpatriotic. He was shocked and angry that they would defy him. He was calling them names. He was attacking them personally, but the vote still passed. The resistance still happened. The defiance still occurred. And more Republicans are breaking with him. So what is driving all of this Republican rebellion in defiance of Trump? What is making Republicans suddenly willing to openly defy Trump when they were so locked in behind him before in his first term? The answer is multiple things working together. It is midterm pressures and electoral math, and the fact that actual constituents who selected these representatives need things and expect action. Swing district Republicans are breaking with Trump specifically to protect their districts and protect their own electoral prospects and chances of staying in office. They have looked at polling numbers very carefully, and they have realized that staying loyal to Trump on some of these major issues is just political suicide. It is going to hurt them badly in the midterms. They are going to lose their seats if they follow Trump off the cliff on Iran war, or cutting health care, or opposing Ukraine aid. So they are making a cold calculation. They are saying, yes, Trump is our president, and yes, we are Republicans, but we have to vote for things that help our constituents and support our allies, even if Trump explicitly opposes it and demands we do not. That is pragmatism. That is political survival. That is what keeps you in office. And that is exactly why you are seeing these defections escalating. Now, Trump's base is still loyal to him personally. The MAGA hardliners are still behind him no matter what. But the pragmatic Republicans who are actually worried about losing their seats in competitive swing districts, they are breaking ranks strategically. They are distancing themselves from him. They are voting for things Trump opposes. And the numbers are growing with each vote. Each vote brings more Republicans over to defiance. Each defiance emboldens more Republicans to break ranks and vote their conscience. And Trump is visibly losing his ability to control his own party because the fundamental political math has changed and shifted. People are scared of losing their seats in the midterms. People are scared of being permanently associated with Trump's most unpopular positions. People are scared of defending his Iran war threats or opposing aid to allies or cutting health care for their constituents. And Trump's response has been exactly what you would expect from someone who is used to getting his way through intimidation in social media. He goes on Truth Social and he attacks people viciously. He calls them names and grandstanders and disloyal. He says they are bad Republicans who do not understand the party. He threatens them with primary challenges. He tries to intimidate them and coerce them through fear and through his base. But it is not working anymore, and that is significant. The votes are still happening regardless. The defections are still occurring. The resistance is still mounting and growing because Republicans have calculated that Trump's retribution and his wrath and his threats are less of a threat to them than losing their seats in the midterms, or being on the wrong side of their constituents, or being associated with cutting health care, or opposing Ukraine aid to a Democratic ally. So Trump's traditional weapons of intimidation and coercion are not working. His ability to control through fear is eroding. His grip on the party is loosening, and that is why you are seeing this breaking of ranks. That is why you are seeing this wave of defections and votes against his wishes. The war powers votes are particularly significant and important because they represent Republicans literally pushing back against Trump's most dangerous impulses and his most reckless instincts. Trump wants to wage war against Iran without Congress approving it. He wants to threaten civilizations and escalate military actions completely unilaterally, and Congress is saying no firmly. Republicans are saying no. That is a constitutional check on his power. That is the system actually working. That is lawmakers putting the brakes on a president who is threatening nuclear war and trying to wage undeclared wars. And even Republicans who are otherwise loyal to Trump are saying that line cannot be crossed. That is how serious the Iran situation is. That is how dangerous people think Trump's impulses are. They are willing to break party ranks to limit his war powers. That is significant. That is important. That is a real check on executive power. And it is happening because Trump has lost the iron grip he once had over his party. So let us break down what this all means and what it tells us about Trump's actual power and his position and where things are going from here. The first thing you need to understand is that Trump's authority within his own party is not what it used to be. For the first 4 years of his presidency, in his first term, Trump had basically complete control over the Republican Party. There was no serious defiance. There was no systematic breaking of ranks. If Trump told Republicans to jump, they jumped. If he told them to vote a certain way, they voted. He had leverage. He had power. He could threaten primary challenges, and it would scare people. He could turn his base against members, and they would back down. He was essentially the dictator of the Republican Party. But that has changed. That control is eroding. And these votes prove it. When you have dozens of Republicans voting against Trump on a veto override, that is not just a couple of rogue members. That is a significant block showing that Trump cannot control his own party anymore, that Trump's threats are not as effective, that Republicans are willing to make independent decisions even if Trump opposes them. That is a huge change from his first term. That is a demonstration that his power is finite and limited and shrinking. The cracks in GOP loyalty are forming along predictable lines. It is swing district Republicans who are break. It is Republicans who are worried about their electoral prospects. It is Republicans whose constituents need things like healthcare subsidies or water projects or aid to allies. These are pragmatic Republicans who have calculated that following Trump off the cliff is not a political strategy that wins elections. They are willing to break with him to survive. Meanwhile, the MAGA hardliners and the safe district Republicans in Trump's base, they are still behind him. They are still loyal. They are still attacking people who defy him. So, you have got a split developing in the Republican Party. You have got pragmatists on one side willing to break with Trump for electoral reasons, and you have got loyalists and hardliners on the other side still following Trump no matter what. That is a real fracture. That is a real division. And it is going to get worse as the midterms approach and more Republicans get worried about their seats. Trump's weapons of control are not working anymore. He can call people grandstanders on social media. He can attack them. He can threaten primary challenges, but the votes still happen. The defiance still occurs. The resistance still mounts because Republicans have calculated that Trump's wrath is less dangerous than losing their seats or being on the wrong side of their constituents. So Trump is learning that being president does not give him unlimited power to control his party. Being president does not make him a dictator. Congress has its own power. Congress has its own authority. Congress can override vetoes. Congress can vote against the president, and a growing number of Republicans are willing to exercise that power. That is the constitutional system working. That is checks and balances actually checking and balancing. What this means for Trump's most extreme positions and his most controversial policies. His Iran war plans are getting constrained. Congress is voting to limit his war powers. His efforts to cut health care are getting blocked. Republicans are voting to keep subsidies. His resistance to Ukraine aid is getting overwritten. Republicans are voting to support our allies. On all of his most extreme and most controversial positions, Trump is facing actual congressional resistance. He is facing votes against him. He is facing defiance, and he cannot stop it because he does not have the votes. He does not have the control. He does not have the power. So his agenda on these issues is getting blocked or constrained. That matters because it means Congress is actually functioning as a check on executive power. It means lawmakers are representing their constituents instead of just following Trump blindly. It means the constitutional system is working, even if it is messy and fractious. So, where does this go from here? And what should you be watching for as things develop? First, watch for the midterms. As we get closer to the elections, more Republicans are going to break with Trump because they are going to get more worried about losing their seats. The electoral pressures are going to intensify. The defections are going to accelerate. You are going to see bigger and bigger groups of Republicans crossing Trump on votes. You are going to see more and more of them distancing themselves from him. That is going to be accelerated by media coverage showing him attacking Republicans and them defying him. Second, watch for Trump's response. He is going to get more angry. He is going to make more attacks on social media. He is going to threaten more primary challenges. He is going to try to intimidate people. But it is not going to work because the political math has changed. The calculus has shifted, and Trump is going to learn that anger and social media posts cannot actually control Congress. Third, watch for whether his extreme positions get completely blocked or constrained on Iran war powers, on Ukraine aid, on health care, on other major issues. You are going to see Republicans continuing to push back. You are going to see votes that defy him. You are going to see his agenda getting blocked. That is going to be humiliating for him. But it is also going to be important for the country because it means Congress is actually functioning. And finally, watch for the fracturing of the Republican Party to accelerate and intensify over time. The split between MAGA loyalists who follow Trump no matter what and pragmatists who care about their districts is going to get much wider and more obvious. The attacks between Trump and pragmatic Republicans are going to get much harsher and more personal. There are going to be primary challenges filed against Republicans who break with Trump. There are going to be internal wars within the party. There are going to be waves of defections to the point where it becomes genuinely unclear what the Republican Party even stands for anymore. It is either becoming the Trump Party or the Pragmatic Party. It cannot be both. And the more Republicans break with Trump and defy him, the more that split is going to become obvious and public and deeply destructive to overall party unity and coherence. So Trump is learning a hard lesson that being president does not automatically make him a dictator. Being president does not give him unlimited control over Congress. Being president does not let him rule by fear and intimidation forever. And his own party is increasingly visibly willing to defy him and break with him when the political math and the electoral calculations say they have to break to survive. That is what this story is really fundamentally about. It is about the limits of Trump's power and the reality that Congress and the Constitution still actually matter, even if Trump does not want to admit it or accept it. The videos of Republicans voting against him keep happening. The defiance keeps mounting, and there is nothing Trump can do to stop it except lash out on social media. That is all he has left.